Here are the most underrated heroes in Season 6. We all know the default picks this season: Orisa, Bastion, Baptiste, but this game has a long history where every hero has been viable and even super strong at least one point in time. Here are the top dark horse heroes that are still powerful and can even counter the current meta. For more specific focus on these heroes, courses and coaching to get the most out of your aim and mechanics, use the link in the description below to get access to a GameLeap membership. With a wide variety of experts across many heroes, you can learn more about maximizing your gameplay and winning more games on your own. I personally recommend the Ashe Masterclass course, covering how to optimize your positioning on the map and target prioritization to pick off your opponents one by one. Make sure to check it out and enjoy the video. And I'm not mentioning Ashe randomly, since she's one of the better heroes that strangely hasn't seen more play in the current meta. Although Bob gets destroyed unbelievably fast, since most of the meta heroes can headshot, the rest of her kit has just the right amount of raw damage and utility to get an advantage in the poke mirror. And outside of the poke mirror, she does great, with her coach gun helping to escape from dives, and especially Bob is actually devastating into rush comps, sending him right into the middle of them for the contact damage uppercut. But in order to compete with the rest of the meta heroes, she needs to be able to match well into the spam comps. Ashe's focus fire is among the best in the game. With high burst damage and headshots, she can weave in her hip fire to delete both tanks and squishies alike. And the only thing holding her back is her reload speed, which up until recently meant she would have to be careful about using too much ammo and leaving herself vulnerable without bullets when the enemy team engages. But now that she reloads her bullets at Mach 5 speed, you'll rarely be able to respond to threats even at the lowest ammo. Her dynamite ability is also not just extra damage. Not many people realize just how effective it is. With 150 total damage per target hit, when applied to support specifically, it gets massive value in multiple different ways. It's almost always guaranteed to force a defensive cooldown. A Baptiste will need to blow his regen burst, and Kirikos will always look to cleanse the effect on themselves and their allies. For supports and DPS without defensive cooldowns, it will also force them to play more passively. It's a lot harder to push forward with your health rapidly decaying. And finally, anybody hit by dynamite is immediately a great target to finish off with your Scorpion headshots. Just the initial 50 explosion damage will leave your target at 150 HP, exactly the maximum damage of the Viper headshot ADS. And that's not even to mention that the damage over time will give you an even better chance to get a pick even if they're receiving heals. Another underrated DPS that has been so for a long time is Junkrat, and honestly, it makes a lot of sense. But considering how strong Bastion has become, largely due to his grenade's pick potential, Junkrat's concussion mine is almost the same, with both advantages and disadvantages compared to his robot counterpart. Because the mine can be detonated whenever, it doesn't need to impact your target directly to send them flying, and is less likely to be blocked by shields. Throwing your concussive mine above your target will still apply the upwards knockback, so with good placement, it's almost unblockable. 2 charges means you can also still have your escape tool ready at hand while still playing aggressively. Compared to Bastion's grenade, Junkrat needs more skill himself to follow up on his own knockback effects, needing to hit air shots every time, while Bastion just needs to hit scan track the target in the air. On top of that, the concussive mine moves slower, meaning more time for your opponents to react appropriately. But by flexing to off angles looking for massive AoE damage, you'll be able to easily outmaneuver this weakness. As for the damage output to keep up with the rest of the cast, Junkrat, while lacking headshot damage, is still fully capable of pressuring tanks with his grenades. It's easy to forget that when doing maximum damage, Junkrat's 180 DPS outdamages even Soldier 76. And when playing against Fortified Orisa, who literally does not take headshots, he's one of the only characters who can still put a lot of pressure on her, especially during her ultimate. His Riptire may struggle against the high damage hitscan heroes that are being played almost every game, but it can still be effectively used to zone and pressure the enemy team into falling back, allowing your team to take stronger positions and still have the possibility to one-shot an entire backline. And when used in the middle of the fight, after cooldowns have been traded between the two teams, it can still get some nasty multi-kills. On to the most underrated and underutilized supports. The queen of the previous patch, Ana, can still be effective against the meta spam comps, despite not contributing to any damage herself. While her sleep won't be getting much use without as many flankers in play, her anti-nade is still one of the best abilities in the game. In order to not just have equal impact, but even more so than the normally played spammy supports like Baptiste and Larry, all you have to do is throw your nade aggressively every time. And I really mean aggressively. While 10 seconds is a long cooldown, it's still shorter than the powerful defensive abilities that it forces every time it hits someone in the fight. And I definitely feel like a broken record mentioning this every time it comes up, but Ana's nade is still one of the only things that can threaten Orisa and Fortify. And not just Orisa either, but Junker Queen, who has played a lot outside of Orisa, also gets all of her self-healing shut off. One of the main reasons why she can still contend with top tanks despite having unfavorable matchups into them. And even though there's no Winston to Nano, there are still plenty of Genjis and a new optimal target, Bastion. With 540, yes, 540 damage per second, there is nothing this guy will not mow down, leaving only a fine red mist behind. And this is only for the spam mirror. It's easy to forget that on high ground heavy maps like Dorado and Gibraltar, Dive is still overwhelmingly the better pick. compared to the static land whale compositions that occupy every other map's waking moment. And Ana is often a safer pick to help your team dive harder with anti-nade utility, nano boost support, and even just consistent long-range healing that Baptiste and Larry lack. And it's easy to forget that when Doomfist is a strong hero, Ana can easily shut him down with a well-placed sleep without interrupting her regular gameplay. With meta being played so often, most players aren't pressed to have to counterpick and swap things up to deal with oppressive and niche heroes on the enemy team. But when it does happen, Ana is a solid pick that shuts down a lot of heroes and ultimates too. Next up is Lifeweaver, and although he gets solid playtime, especially in lower ranks, he's often overshadowed by the heavy damage, bloodthirsty supports. He's definitely best paired with someone who can dish out that consistent DPS like Zenyatta or Baptiste, but his raw healing output alone is enough to consider playing him more often. In my Grandmaster games, I almost never see him, but as soon as I queue into a quick play game, I meet some of the most insane weavers that are really pushing the hero to the limit. One of the most important criteria for whether a hero is good or not is how good their ultimate is. And while Lifeweaver's tree might seem like it can get destroyed easily by Bastion or Torbjorn, simply baiting turret form or overload, or even waiting for them to come out, then turning the tempo with a massive tree afterwards makes a big difference. Because the meta is mostly stationary, with no speed and low mobility, you'll usually get the entire 15 seconds worth of the Tree of Life's healing and overhealth. And whenever you play against a tree, there's always going to be someone trying to kill it and wasting their time. Even if the entire enemy team is trying to destroy the tree, it's really difficult when the Lifeweaver's team is playing in front of it, surging forward aggressively. And like I mentioned previously, kiting it is almost impossible in the current meta, especially when placed around the objective. And this is all without mentioning the insane utility you can get out of the pedal platform. Remember how heavy high ground maps favor dive instead of spam comps? Lifeweaver sneezes at that assumption and sends Bastion up and into your backline, and that's only the most basic use of it. It's easy to want to play the damage supports in the spam meta, but the strong damage heroes already pump out a ludicrous amount of bullets, so it's sometimes better to just help them do their job more effectively through your own special utility. Finally, the most underrated tank has to be Junker Queen. After reading some of the comments on the tier lists and opinions online, a lot of people rate Junker Queen way lower than the other strong tanks in the meta, but as a massive Junker Queen fan, I'm gonna have to respectfully disagree. There are two things that are really important for the tank in this meta: survivability and, once again, raw, unfiltered damage output, and Queen is able to do both of them in her own way. Not only does Queen still have a seriously small hitbox for a tank, but ever since her passive was buffed to heal her for double her bleed damage, good bleed uptime makes it nearly impossible to focus her down as long as she's playing mid-range and safe. The speed boost on her shout and the crazy damage and sustain you can do with her melee range axe slash make it seem like you have to constantly be pushing in to get value. But just with her shotgun and knife alone, she's a top 3 mid-ranging tank for sure. Compared to Orisa and Zarya, she has way more consistent headshot pressure as well, and it's one of the bigger reasons why she can kill tanks better than most. Her ultimate being harder to pull off is a small price to pay for the crazy plays she can pull when you start hitting more knives mid-fight. Once again, remember how the strong comps right now are static with low mobility? Hitting a knife on a Bastion or Baptiste is a death sentence, and with good ability usage and animation cancelling, you can solo kill them in front of their whole team. Getting maximum value as Queen is kind of unattainable. Hitting 5-man carnage slashes, hitting 5-man anti-heal with your ultimate, hitting every knife even, it's all things she can do, but often won't be able to. But even so, just playing a good, solid Queen that hits most of her knives is a lot better than a lot of tanks right now. She's still not as much of an instant win character as Orisa or even sometimes Zarya, but with just a little bit of skill and effort, you'll be able to get some really nice picks using her knife to displace your enemies and being an unstoppable force in the front line with all your self-healing. That's it for the most underrated heroes right now, and if you still don't believe me about Junker Queen, make sure to check out the GameLeap membership where I'll be uploading a Junker Queen guide soon, covering optimal ultimate usage, positioning, and how to get value out of her neutral. Once again, thanks for watching, and see you next time.